This is a very important business question, and it'll come up often in business classes as well as finite math, and you even approach it in business calculus, or in some institutions it might be called the survey of calculus. But what we have here is a cost function. Assume that the situation can be expressed as a linear cost function and a cost function. Find the function in this case. The marginal cost is $20 and 190 items cost $7,000 to produce. What this is going to be based on, our cost function, is this y equals mx plus b. Now you're probably familiar with this from your basic algebra 1, the slope-intercept form of a line. But when we translate into a function, what we get is the cost for x items is going to equal the marginal cost times the number of items, where x is the variable, so we're going to vary how many items there are, plus the fixed cost. So m, the slope in our y equals mx plus b, is the marginal cost, or the cost per unit. Well, let me be careful when I say cost per unit, because the cost per unit isn't going to be exactly the marginal cost, but we could say the cost per unit outside of those fixed costs. So how much, once you've paid the fixed cost, how much more are you paying for each item? I hope that makes a little bit more sense, but it's not exactly the cost per unit, because the cost per unit actually is going to include the fixed cost also, right? You have to spread out the fixed cost. But anyhow, the marginal cost is the slope, and the fixed cost is the y-intercept. So in other words, if you can picture a y-intercept, if we made x equal to 0, when x is 0, before you make one product, so when you've made 0 products, the cost is still going to be here somewhere, right? So in this case, we're looking for that fixed cost, but in this case, the fixed cost, B, is how much it costs to make 0 items. So B is how much does it cost to make 0 items. So in other words, the fixed cost. Here's how you approach it. We're going to start with this fact. They tell us here that 190 items is $7,000, and that $7,000, that includes the fixed costs and the marginal cost. So we could say that the cost for 190 items is $7,000. Or in other words, when x is 190, y is 7,000. Now, if I use this and I use my slope, so our slope, our marginal cost, our slope was given to us as 20. I could plug these into y equals mx plus b and solve for b. So in place of y, I'll put 7,000. In place of m, I'm going to put 20. In place of x, I'll put 190. And then b is what we're trying to find. So y, 7,000, equals m, 20, times x, 190 plus b. Now, I know the temptation for some students is going to be, oh, I'm just going to write that down and memorize it. Could I encourage you instead, as a business student, possibly, most of the students in this course are business students, could I encourage you instead to make sure you understand what you're doing? Don't just plot it out. Don't just write it out following an example. Make sure you understand what we're doing here, because it's such an important question. And often students will miss something on a quiz and say, oh, we didn't even cover that, or we've never done an example like that. But if you understood the concept, the big idea, then any question around cost functions will fit right into your understanding. But let me go over one more time what we did here. If 190 items is $7,000, then the cost of 190 is 7,000. Or in other words, when 190 is x, y, or the cost, is 7,000. We had the M equal to 20 because that was given to us as a marginal cost. So the cost additional to the fixed costs of each item, the M. And when we plug those in, we can solve for B. I'm going to do that really quickly here. And I use some simple arithmetic and basic linear equation solving to get the B, or the fixed cost, is 3,200. So do you see how I could answer another question about this? If the question said, what is the fixed cost? I could say the fixed cost is 3,200. Writing out the final equation, we're going to have the cost for X items is the fixed cost, 3,200, added to the marginal cost times the number, oh, I'm sorry, where I got a, I don't know where I got a 40 from. The marginal cost was 20 times the number of items, so 20x. So our cost of X items is 20 times the number of items plus $3,200. You see the powerfulness of this cost function? Now I can come up with a number for any number of items. What is it going to cost to make 100 items? All I do is I put a 100 in for X and calculate it out. Or how much would it cost to make 1,000 items? Just put 1,000 in, 20 times 1,000 plus 3,200, etc. Really important question. Make sure you understand it, not just that you can follow this example, but that you truly understand it. And reach out to me if you have any further questions about this one.